Previously on the Fan of History, Assyria defeated Damascus to the great benefit of Israel. Welcome to the events of the 790s BC, part 2. I'm going to talk a lot about Judah, but I'm going to try to avoid the Jewish faith because it has come to my attention that a lot of the things said in the Bible is later inventions and does not properly reflect the religious situation in Israel, which is extremely complicated. You should watch the Great Civilizations in 800 BC before you watch this, so you know a bit about what the situation was in the world at this time. The most powerful guy around is Adad-Nirari III, the king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, at least in the Western world. There is King Tuan of the Western Su as well in China, and he has a land that rivals Assyria. But they have no contact. This Adad-Nirari III is the 6th king of the empire. He's a warrior king, he campaigns a lot. We do not have the details for his eastern campaigns. And he's blind to the problems of the empire. But before we even mention empire, we will have to go very far away and not to China, because something is happening in Mexico. The Olmecs are starting to build pyramids. The first one is built in La Venta, their great religious center. Remember, the Olmecs do not have cities, they have religious centers. This is the Great Pyramid of La Venta. All the buildings are placed symmetrically along a north-south axis, and the 4 of those heads are facing outwards at key points. Remember the colossal stone heads of the Olmecs. This pyramid is made entirely out of clay, and it remains. The picture on the bottom is what it probably looked like back in the day. And the picture on top is what it looks like today. It's on complex C of the La Venta site, and this site is preserved, but as everything was made out of clay, it looks a bit like the picture above. These pyramids have not been excavated, and we do not really know why they were destroyed, but they were destroyed. This is not erosion that have caused the effect you see on the top. They were destroyed in 394 BC. By someone, but we do not know whom, because we cannot read what the Olmecs wrote. The pyramid was 110 feet high, and I would say, that is just my personal reflection, this was quite primitive compared to the Egyptian pyramids, which are much earlier, so there is zero connection. There is also Maya around. South to the Olmec civilization, the Maya have their first statelet. So back to the Middle East. I call it the Western world, the Near East, the Middle East. I'm not sure what the proper term is, but you know of what I speak. I have avoided the kingdom of Judah this far, but this whole episode will be a lot about the kingdom of Judah. And the reason I have avoided the kingdom of Judah is that there is zero archaeological evidence that I know of. There is a little, but it can easily be wrong. So the first real archaeological evidence is in the 730s BC, but it's becoming increasingly harder not to talk about Judah, as Israel is an historical fact. So Judah might have been a vassal state of Israel, it might have been part of Israel, we don't really know. But I am making an arbitrary decision here to begin with Amachiah, king of Judah in 796. And there is a reason that I will begin to talk about him. Remember from last episode that Jehoash, the grandson of Jehu, who killed the dynasty of Omri, is the king in Israel. So this is Amachiah. He becomes king at 25 years old. And he looks way older in this picture, which is this drawing, which is weird because this is his high period. His father was assassinated, but as Damascus has been defeated, and Damascus was the great villain of the area, Israel is doing great, and so is Judah. At this time, they begin counting the year in a different way, which is similar to the Assyrian way. So they are probably heavily influenced by Assyria. They are paying tribute to Assyria, both Israel and Judah. But Amaziah decides that it's time to go to war, and he wants to go to war with Edom, which is a kingdom south of Judah. It has previously been a vassal state of Judah according to legend, and that is where the fun begins. So this is the map. You can see Edom south of Judah. Petra is in Edom. So to ensure the success of this war, Amaziah decides to hire 10,000 mercenaries from the Israel army. And remember, the Israelites don't have to go to war anymore because Assyria has defeated Damascus. And in fact, huge Israel armies close to Assyrian armies, which are still in Damascus at this point, is probably a really bad idea. So Jehoash decides to send these 10,000 mercenaries, or they leave on their own accord. But right before the mercenaries arrive to Jerusalem, there is a prophet that tells Amaziah that, if you want to be cool with the Lord, you shouldn't use these mercenaries. You have to win by your faith in the Lord, or something similar. But whatever he says, Amaziah decides to attack Edom without the mercenary army. So, and apparently the Lord is with him, because he wins a great victory in the Valley of Salt to the south of the Dead Sea. He takes a stronghold called Selah, the Rock, Alcatraz. And Edom is quite surprised by this attack, because they also just paid tribute to Adad-Nirari III of Assyria. So they, and we don't know if they requested Assyrian assistance, but this must have been a danger, because Assyria, as we have talked about in Syria, Assyria often came to the rescue of their vassal states, or they used attacks on their vassal states as excuses to attack people, because Assyria is always looking for targets. But Amaziah wins this war. He brings back treasure. In this treasure is some really nice looking idols of some Edomite gods. And remember these idols. So the Israeli mercenaries arrive in Jerusalem, but Amaziah is gone. The army is gone. Amaziah has gone to war without them. So they will not get any plunder or booty from the war with Edom. And they become outraged. They attack Judah, plunder, kill, destroy stuff in Judah. They apparently don't invade Jerusalem, but they wreck Judah quite badly. And when Amaziah comes back with his army, the mercenaries are gone, but the people of Judah is not very happy. They complain, "What the hell, Amaziah, you weren't here, and these guys just wrecked us." So Amaziah has complaints. He challenges Joash, but apparently Joash must have consumed some substances or something, because he tells Amaziah a fable where Joash is a cedar tree and Amaziah is a thorn bush. And if the cedar tree falls on the thorn bush will be destroyed. So he is not very scared of Amaziah, but Amaziah is mad. He doesn't want to see his people suffer like this, so he declares war. And of course, Israel has a huge army that is not occupied elsewhere. Assyria is keeping the peace to the north. So the war doesn't go very well for Judah. In fact, Joash wins a crushing victory in Beth Shemesh, which is in northwestern Judah, close to Lachish, I believe. Lachish will become very important in the last decade of this century. So Joash and the Israel army destroys the Judah army and takes Jerusalem without much of a struggle. And Judah is made to pay a heavy tribute. There is a lot of plundering going on. A lot of treasures from the temple are taken. But Joash also wants to take hostages to ensure that Judah cannot take revenge for this. So he takes Amaziah and a lot of other guys as hospitals, as hostages. Sorry. This means that Judah now has no king, the treasure is gone, the really cool looking idols, they are also taken. And apparently it becomes well known that Amaziah decided to go to war with Israel because he was influenced by the idols. He had begun worshipping these pagan idols of the Edomites because they were really, really entrancing. Like, you look at them and you feel like, oh, I really like these gods. But these charming idols are now in the possession of Joash, the king of Israel. So what does Judah do? They take Amaziah's son, Uzziah, and make him king. Co-regent, they say, because when your father is gone, you have to rule with him. But this, of course, means that Uzziah was only 16 at the time. He doesn't look 16 in the picture, but that's because he will rule Judah for a very long time. And he appears to be much better at being a king than his father, which is probably really good. Yeah, let's not forget the Assyrian Empire. In 793 BC, Adad-Nirari III attacks the Medes. So the empire is still going strong, projecting its power every year somewhere. All action seems to be in the east, but there's almost zero sources for that. I don't really know what the king is doing in 795 and 94. And when I say the king, I probably mean the king or Shamshi-Ilu, the Turtano, the field marshal. The Medes will of course become very important later. And in 792 BC, it is apparently time to attack the Medes again, and the Assyrians go to war with the Medes. And these wars against the Medes might just be horse raids, because they seem to produce no result. And this is not the first time they go to war against the Medes. They do it all the time. So, Babylonia. Babylonia is in disarray, in anarchy almost, ever since the campaigns of Adad-Nirari III's father. And remember, Adad-Nirari III has campaigned here as well. And it is possible that he campaigns to Dir, which might be Babylonia, or a place in Babylonia in 795 and 94. It is all extremely unclear what's going on in Babylonia. They have really gone down the last 50 years. There might be a king called Ninurta Apla X, and the X simply means that nobody can read what his name is. Apparently it is very, very unclear what that character is. But he might also made some sort of peace agreement with Adad-Nirari III. But all of this is very, very unclear. In 791 BC, Adad-Nirari III decides to direct Assyrian power to the northeast towards Urartu, and there is fighting in Kubushkia. This is almost certainly led by Shamshi-Ilu the Turtano, as his base is in the north at Kar Shalmaneser. So he is probably protecting the Bitadini territory, which is his tribe. And 10 years ago, in 801 BC, exactly the same thing happened here. It produces no results. The wall of Urartu in the north is too hard for the Assyrians to penetrate. Remember, when Assyria and Urartu fights in the field, Urartu has no chance. But when they fight on Urartu territory, they get nowhere. They used to get somewhere back in the old days, but now Assyria is powerless to invade Urartu, and Urartu is powerless to defeat Assyria in open battle. So there is a stalemate in the north, and it's often taking place in Kubushkia, which you can see at the bottom of the map. So next time we will talk about the 780s BC. I will introduce to you the Etruscans. I will talk about other interesting things, such as the powerful Argishti, king of Urartu. I will also probably resign my role as a person knowledgeable in Egypt, because Egypt becomes even more confusing and I might just give up. We're also going to talk about China. Please discuss the show with me on YouTube or on Facebook. You can check out the WordPress site. There is also a Patreon for Fan of History. You can support the Fan of History if you go to patreon.com. But I'll talk more about that in the events of the 780s BC. Thank you for watching.